sides, with the nuances of the conflict being shown. We don't. The film portrays the Christian Crusaders as bloodthirsty barbarians, while their Islamic opponents are shown as intelligent and peaceful.
To be fair, Saladin was very highly respected, even by Europeans. He was very highly respected.
Now it should be said,
I'm not saying all of them were, but he was.
That Ridley Scott, the director of the film, is an atheist, so we can see why he deliberately decided to portray things this way. But regardless of Scott's motivation, the portrayal of the Crusades in Kingdom of Heaven reflects how they've been understood by a majority of Westerners for decades.
That's true. I think that the perspective that a lot of Americans have is that the Crusades were they were European aggression towards the Middle East. I think this is accurate.
Documentaries like the History Channel's Mankind, The Story of Us single out the Crusades as a uniquely evil chapter of human history.
I think of all the wars fought over religion, the Crusades belong in their own category.
It is
really, I mean, I don't know. I
The
feel like
right
there's a
heroes
lot of
could
crazy
make all
wars.
the difference.
the most shameful undertakings ever embarked upon by our species.
So far.
I will bring peace to this universe.
In all of
no
these
matter
cases,
the cost.
the same narrative is presented.
And I think actually I think the Crusaders were probably like this. I think this probably happened all the time. Is that you had guys that spent 10 years down in the Middle East and they were G's. They had power, they had authority, they were well known, they were powerful, and then you told them, hey, you've got to go back home and go be a potato farmer again. And this guy says, bro, what the fuck? Like, I used to lead a fucking team of 20 guys. We used to raid villages. I used to eat meat every day.
I am happy
Fuck
you are
this.
here,
I don't
Susan.
want to do that.
You have been a true friend since I first emerged from my cocoon.
Today, crazy
Of course
Christians
that
decided
happens.
to attack the peaceful and
I mean,
enlightened.
it's so manifestly
wicked
obvious
schemes.
that it was even the plot for
I am
Rambo,
much higher
the First
calling.
Blood. This has been the case ever since there have been cases.
3, 2,
in the Islamic world just because they could. The events are held as a staple of why we need separation of church and state, and why Catholicism should have no place in government. We're led to believe that if Christians have power again, they'll
It's very obvious Catholicism does have a huge role in government. Like, I mean, in the same way that Muslim countries are generally, informed. Their laws are informed by Sharia law and by their own culture. In America and in Europe, it's generally informed by Christianity. Not entirely, but to an extent.
unnecessary wars of religion, just like the Crusades.
Yes.
But in reality, there are few events in history more misunderstood than the Crusades.
Really?
This is why I'm making this video.
Okay, let's see
The
it.
popular understanding of the Crusades is dead wrong, and I'm here to explain why.
All right, let's hear
In
it.
this video, you'll be finding out why the Crusades were not only morally justified, but were actually a historic achievement.
already.
Buckle up, because there's a lot to cover.
Wow.
Let's travel back in time to 600 AD,
was a long time ago.
roughly 500 years before the First Crusade. This is a map of the Christian world at that time. All the highlighted areas show where Christianity had spread and become the majority religion.
That's a
Wait
lot.
a minute, is that the Middle East and North Africa? Yes, it is. These
That's not a surprise at all. Yeah, of course.
two areas used to be Christian.
Yeah.
People today think of these as Muslim lands, but that was not always the case. It all began when Christianity spread far and wide after being legalized by Emperor Constantine the Great with the Edict of Milan. This led to the Christianization of both the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. Even as the western part of the empire fell to barbarians, Christianity remained, and most of the barbarians also converted.
Yeah.
So if that happened in Europe, what happened in the Middle East and North Africa? In the mid-600s, Arab warlords sprang out of the Arabian Peninsula and began conquering everything in their path. They brought with them their own religion, Islam. Unlike European barbarians, they did not convert to Christianity. The Middle East at the time was dominated by two superpowers, the Christian Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, and the Zoroastrian Sassanid Empire. Unfortunately for them both, they had just fought each other in a gigantic war lasting 25 years.
Holy
and drained
shit.
themselves of key resources. Because of this, neither was prepared for the invasions that hit them. The Byzantines lost all of Africa and the Levant, while the Sassanid Empire collapsed completely. The most important loss
Oh my
for the
God.
Christian world,
Safe
though,
now,
was
my
the loss of the Holy Land. By 900 AD, Islam had expanded, by conquest, all the way to France and southern Italy. Now, I'm
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
not going to moralize about this. Conquest and wars of expansion
Yeah.
have been common all through history, and Islam followed in that same mold. However, Islam did take things a step further with its concept of jihad, or holy war. Muhammad was a conqueror who took slaves. Behold the god of thunder! As a side note, this is also why slavery has always been common in the Islamic world and continues to be practiced there to this very day. But regardless of the
I hear that a lot. They have slaves still.
morality of the Islamic conquests, they were, nonetheless, invaders who invaded the Christian world.
Damn.
Christians in conquered lands were second-class citizens, and many were taken as slaves. Christian inhabitants had to pay an enormous tax called the Dhimmi tax, and their churches were often shut down. Because of Islamic policies over the centuries, Christianity in the Middle East and North Africa shrunk from a large majority to a tiny minority. But it actually gets even worse.
How the Islamic
Destiny
escalation
awaits.
forced Christendom down.
During the days
Is
of
this
the
true?
Roman Empire, the
Do not
Mediterranean
give in.
Sea was a breadbasket of commerce and trade.
Yeah, sure.
The Romans had
Only 60
successfully
seconds
stamped out
left.
piracy and created some of the safest waterways in the entire world. Islamic
This is propaganda. Muhammad freed slaves? Oh, it's probably not. I mean, it's probably they have slaves in some cases. They don't have slaves in other cases. That's probably what happened. Realistically.
Christians brought all of this to an end. From bases in
Yeah, you
North
just gotta think
Africa
about
and
it.
the Middle East, they turned the Mediterranean into an unsafe hellhole. This crashed the European economy and made
Wait, so you're telling me that all the way back then they were going out and fucking with boats, and now they're still going out and fucking with boats?
Only moments longer.
This was literally over a thousand years
Yes,
ago.
with the amazing Spider-Man!
Couldn't deal with these guys fucking with boats.
Europe a miserable place for commerce for almost
What they do, yeah.
Keep fighting until
Islam's so-called Golden Age came at Europe and Christianity's expense. This is the true reason that many consider the years 600 AD to 1000 AD a dark age for Europe.
Oh, that's because of
Quickly
volcanoes.
cut off from the entire world and constantly under attack.
Uh-huh.
It was in this hellish environment that Christendom finally started to happen. The first rumblings for a crusade came in 846 when an Arabic expedition to Sicily sailed up the Tiber River and sacked St. Peter's in Rome. A synod in France called for Christian sovereigns to rally against the enemies of Christ.
Jesus.
And the Pope, Leo IV, offered a heavenly
Wait, don't we have a Pope Leo now? And wasn't Blackwater asking the new Pope Leo for money so they can help stop the attacks of Christians in... Oh my god. Dude.
or to those who died fighting
Wow.
the Muslims. But it was around 1000 AD when things really escalated on multiple fronts. In the west, the Islamic Caliphate of Cordoba in Iberia began expanding north. It conquered, burned, and enslaved its way through multiple Christian cities, including Barcelona and Leon. It was this expansion
I know that
campaign
one.
that finally provoked the Christian kingdoms to launch the Reconquista to retake Iberia from Islam. But if things looked rough in Western Christendom, they were even worse in the East. In the late 900s, a Central Asian Muslim group called the Seljuk Turks began migrating into Anatolia.
The Turks!
In 1064, they completely conquered Armenia and sacked its capital, Ani.
Holy
the city
shit.
never recovered from this
Pick your hero.
brutality and
I'm not
remains a
judging.
ruin to this very day.
Wow.
Almost all of the Armenian population had to migrate southeast to Cilicia, creating an entire new kingdom called Cilician Armenia. In other words, Islam had made the Armenian homeland unlivable. The Turks then turned their expansion into the Byzantine Empire. They began invading western Anatolia in droves. The Byzantines tried to
will
launch
bring peace
counterattacks,
to
but
this
were ultimately
universe,
defeated
no
at the
matter the
Battle of
cost.
Manzikert. After this defeat, Turks began mass migrating
I didn't know this much shit happened before the Crusades. I had no idea about this.
I tend to
Anatolia, completely altering its demographics. Another region of the Christian world had just become Islamic by force.
Man.
Here's how
30
historian
seconds
John
before
J.
you
O'Neill
attack.
describes
Get
the
ready.
circumstances. These, then, are the major political events which prefigured the First Crusade. Within a span of 35 years, the Turks had seized control of Christian territories larger than the entire region of France.
Holy shit.
And now they were a real threat to
That's crazy. Wow.
Europe. Now, by this point, the
battle
Byzantine
starts in
Empire
5,
realized it was incapable of stopping the
3,
Islamic hordes
2,
by itself.
1.
Emperor Alexius Comnenus
All
made
you
a
need to do
desperate
is
appeal
capture
to the
the
Pope
mission
and
area.
Western
Got
Christendom
it?
for aid. This was a major deal because Eastern and Western Christendom had been in schism for almost 50 years by this point.
So they came
the
together?
Catholic Pope and the Orthodox patriarchs did not get along,
Right.
to put it lightly. But the issue had become that serious
They actually kicked. Damn.
that they were now willing to cooperate.
Damn.
What made matters even more urgent was the Turks had begun persecuting Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. Priests like Peter the Hermit, who had become one of the greatest advocates of the Crusades, witnessed this firsthand. This is the geopolitical environment that led to the First Crusade being fought. Now, does it seem unreasonable when you get all this other context? This is what Catholic Europeans knew about Islam on the eve of the First Crusade. Muslims were enemies of Christ. They waged wars against non-combatants and enslaved women and children. And
Yes. Yeah.
they had conquered all of Iberia, Anatolia, and threatened
Right.
France and Italy. It was important that this all happened at the turn of the first millennium. By this time, the elites of Europe were finally starting to become much wealthier and better educated. They were developing a much stronger grasp of history and world affairs. Europe was safer and more interconnected than any time since the Roman Empire. They were beginning to truly understand just how much damage Islam had done to the Christian world and how much of a civilizational threat it still represented. All the pieces were now in place for the Crusades to be launched.
So did the Pope actually just? Did he? I don't know how this happened.
In 95, the moment had arrived. Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade to retake the Holy Land.
So the Pope actually called for the crusade.
Drive back Islam. It would be the first of many. An excerpt from Urban's crusade speech reads, "Your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help, and you must hasten to give them the aid which has been promised them. The heathens have killed many, and they have destroyed churches and devastated the Greek empire.
with the
If you
amazing
permit them to
Spider-Man!
continue with impunity, the faithful of God will be much more likely to act. On this account, I, or rather the Lord, beseech you as Prince Herald, to come
Bro.
push this everywhere, and to persuade all people of whatever end to carry a promptly towards Christians. Let therefore hatred depart from among you. Let your quarrels end. Let wars cease. And let all dissensions and
So
controversies
they just said stop fighting amongst each other and just go over there and kill them. I mean that usually works, to be fair.
It's important to point out how Pope Urban's speech
I am
emphasized
born
not
anew.
only the defense of Christendom,
Uh-huh.
but also the end of internal wars between Christian
consolidation.
kingdoms. The Pope envisioned an international brotherhood
You'll
of
have to keep
Catholics who
fighting until
fought
we have a
not each
winner.
other, but
Control
their
love.
external threats.
I hear that guy's Catholics, not Protestants.
In any case, the call for crusade was extremely well received. The news spread through all of Europe like wildfire. Tens of thousands of faithful Catholics all across Europe answered the Pope's call. Lowly peasants, ambitious knights, even kings. French, English, Flemish, German,
I am
people from
ready to
all
put on
walks
a
of life
show.
and all nationalities were inspired to fight for Christendom.
Damn.
It's not really appreciated how much of an accomplishment that this alone was.
Well, I think it probably makes sense in the context, right? Because these people were having their homelands attacked, and like, I think that there's something that's going to go beyond just the religion.
I have risen.
Whenever you're being invaded by an occupying force, you're going to generally be against that no matter what. Even if the occupying force is in some way benevolent or reasonable, you're still going to have people that will resist against it because they don't want to deal with it. Like now, in some cases, yeah. Sounds familiar? Yeah, it's common enemy, right?
It's
Exactly.
really something entirely unique in human history. The Catholic Church had created a multinational network that united Europeans of all stripes and ethnicities under a common faith with common goals. So many different Europeans being united by one religion and engaging in a civilization-wide struggle had not happened before and has not happened since.
God damn. Yeah, I didn't realize how historic this was, or how big of a deal this was.
Catholicism achieved what hundreds of other religions and ideologies could not, and perhaps this is why the modern secular system demonizes the Crusades.
Want to fall near the voice.
Now, did every crusade always go the best it could have gone?
No, I bet there were tons of crusaders that were awful, right? It's the same as any war. I mean, any army, you're going to have guys that are awful and terrible that are inside of that group. I mean, that's not really anything that's unique or special. It's just common sense. Of course that's what's going to happen.
No,
Duh.
of course not. Some crusades were huge successes, like the Reconquista, while others were abysmal failures in the Fourth Crusade. But even the failures are understandable in context. Crusaders were going halfway across the world to fight unfamiliar enemies on their own home turf. The logistics of the Crusades alone were a monumental undertaking.
Yeah, that shit's hard to do.
Despite all these challenges, the Christian forces still often came out on top. The First Crusade could really only be qualified as a roaring success. Crusaders defeated almost every Muslim army they encountered and captured Jerusalem.
Wow.
For the first time in hundreds of years, the Holy Land was back under Christian control.
I read somewhere that the last time that like a Muslim force had a victory against a Christian force in Europe was actually with
30
Saladin.
seconds before you attack.
Like that
Get
was the
ready.
last time that it happened, even up to now. Like that, it's kind of crazy. It's incorrect. I don't know if it's true or not, but like, yeah, it's hard to say.
The First Crusade also established Crusader states that would remain in the Middle East for another century. One crusade I personally liked was the Sixth
Ottomans?
Crusade. Jerusalem had fallen back into Muslim hands, but they had started to fight each other in a civil war. Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire negotiated a peaceful transfer of Jerusalem back into Christian rule. Jerusalem was retaken without a single drop of blood being spilled.
Oh, that's
a
nice.
decisive diplomatic victory, even if the Muslims would eventually take it back. As you can tell, during this time period, it was hard for just about anybody to hold on to Jerusalem for long. In the end, the Crusades secured Christendom's western flank and bought its eastern flank another 300.
Who's controlling Jerusalem right now? I actually don't even know. Who's controlling it?
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
Israel.
The cosmos heals.
So
No worries.
the Muslims and the Christians fought over this and fucking died. Millions of them died for this shit. And neither of them have this. Israel has, Jewish people have enough. Israel has enough. Is that right? So all this was for fucking nothing. They got third parties. That's crazy.
100 years. It wasn't until the emergence of the Ottoman Empire in the 1300s that Islam once again threatened Europe. But even when that happened, Crusaders once again went out to stop it. The Crusade of Nicopolis and the Crusade of Varna are two big examples of this. While they didn't succeed in stopping the Ottomans, they did show that Christendom was still capable of uniting to fight common threats in the name of God. And in the end, 300 years later, in the 1600s, Ottoman power would be broken by what was basically the Crusades. Austria, Poland, Venice, and Russia united to defeat the Ottomans and drive them back from Europe. Despite all of this, some people say the Crusades failed. But today, Europe was Christian when the Crusades were launched, and it's still majority Christian today, 1,000 years later, although it is secularizing due to modernist ideologies. Ironically, it's only after the Pope lost his power to call crusades that Christianity started to decline.
Well, who said the Pope can't call a crusade? Who decided that? Yeah, who decided that the Pope can't do crusades anymore? The Pope? So he could just change his mind.
Destiny awaits.
So like theoretically, you could have another crusade. Like this could happen.
Europe. But when we look back at these events, history shows it's not a shameful chapter of Catholic history, but the total opposite. The Christian world defended itself and spread the faith abroad after hundreds and hundreds of years of abuse. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the Crusades were awesome indeed. This is
damn.
Pat, and thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos, please consider supporting the channel. Also, leave a
I'm
comment.
sorry, but like I cannot get over the irony of the Muslims and the Christians fucking fought and killed each other over Jerusalem for like 1,000 years, and now the Jews have it. Neither of us have it. It's the Jews that have it now. That's crazy.
And letting me know your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
As always, I will see you
Wow.
in the next video.
Yeah, I mean, definitely probably a bit of a propaganda video. I mean, I'm sure, you know, it seems kind of obvious that, like, you know, there's one perspective that he's trying to give. But it's interesting to hear it, right? I mean, and I think that there's probably, like, the reality is that it's probably a little bit in between, right? That's what I would kind of assume. Churchill gave it to them? Yeah, what about Space Marines? Well, I don't know. There's the video. Give it a like, guys. And World War I was a religious war? I don't know about that. You should watch the video of Epic History. It's incredibly biased, and most of it was wrong, and it was nice to fit his narrative. Listen, I bet you...
The right heroes could make all the difference.
You don't have to be a witch to find the magic in this world, but it does help.
Today we're talking about the 20,000 Epstein files that got released. It's a complicated picture involving a lot of powerful people, but let me